True Crime Screening Room is a presentation of Podcast Picks with Jim the Podcast Sherpa. Please keep in mind that some of the topics discussed might be too intense for younger or sensitive listeners. Even Jim the Podcast Sherpa conducts some of these interviews while hiding under his desk, all while holding a stuffed mountain lion named Mr. Wubby.
Welcome to True Crime Screening Room, the podcast featuring interviews with creators who dedicate their work to unraveling true crime mysteries. We're now entering the investigation room in the Sherpa Chalet to meet your host, Jim the Podcast Sherpa.
Hello there, rebels of the Sherpalution, and welcome to True Crime Screening Room. It is a side project of Podcast Picks with Jim, the Podcast Sherpa. That's me, coming to you from the investigation room of the Sherpa Chalet here in Sherpalu Studios, high atop Mount Podcastia, where I normally overlook the millions and millions of podcasts that are out there. But we're not talking about podcasts today. No, we are talking true crime. And as I say, we know you guys love your true crime. So this week I get to speak to two guests who have co-authored a new true crime book. It is called Where Murder Lies, Death and Deception in West Hollywood. Their names are Burl Bearer and Frank C. Giradot Jr. And they come to us from different lands, different lands across the great land. But they have worked together several times. This is their third book together. And we talk about how they got to know each other, which is an interesting story. The case had to do with a murder in 2004, where a gentleman named Alex Markzitter was killed in a hotel room. And there were three people in the hotel room: Jimmy Kitlitz, his pregnant girlfriend Audrey Lane, and Mark Itaev, who was a Russian mobster who was also posing as a confidential informant. So you can imagine where it's going to go from here, but it was actually more than that. Years later, after the murder, after Kitlitz and Itaev went to jail, Burl was contacted by a friend of his named Kelly Lee and said, "You know what, you do these true crime things. Maybe you should have a look at this," because she didn't believe that Kitlitz had anything to do with the case. So Burl contacted his buddy Frank and said, "Let's write a book about this." And they did a lot of research on this. We talk about this in the interview. It became basically like an onion because they kept peeling away layers that had to do with so much crime all over the place. And there are other stories in the book that actually tie into the murder. So they'll explain it a lot better than I can. But I had a super nice time talking to both of them. I think this is the first time I would actually say this about my guests. I would love to have them both back on, but separately, because they both have had fascinating careers. Frank is a writer and a journalist, and I believe he covered the O.J. Simpson murder trial. So I'd like to bend his ear about that and find out a little more insight and probably some of the other stuff that he's reported on. And Burl, if his name is not familiar to you, has been the host of a long-running true crime podcast. So he's been doing that and writing books too. So maybe we could do like a listen to this episode with Burl. So you're hearing it, guys. As long as you're checking this episode out, there is my request. So get on back to me and we will definitely work something out. I'm sure that we would be in for a very interesting conversation. But if you want to hear an interesting conversation right now, stay tuned, because do they still say stay tuned on podcasts? I don't know. If you want to hear an interesting conversation right now, check out my conversation right now with Burl Bearer and Frank C. Giradot Jr., the authors of Where Murder Lies, Death and Deception in West Hollywood. Hello there, rebels. We are here in the investigation room at the Sherpa Chalet. I have two guests tonight, and they are the authors of a new book called Where Murder Lies, Death and Deception in West Hollywood. WeHo, as it is called from what I understand. Their names are Burl Bearer and Frank Giradot Jr. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Pleasure. Hey, Jim.
This is actually your third book your third book that you've written together.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time
For the
goes by so
Sherpa-
quickly when you're having fun.
The Sherpa Nation will be happy to know that it's not only our third book together, but it's the wildest one we've written, and that includes the one that we wrote about the New York Police Department. So,
Yeah, that was scary too.
yeah.
Yeah, I think this book has more twists than a Chubby Checker Greatest Hits album.
Yes, you're right about that.
How did you two guys meet? I know that you were both journalists and you're both authors.
Yeah.
It's an interesting story.
Tell them.
I remember. So Burl has a podcast of his own. It's the True Crime Uncensored on the Outlaw Radio.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the longest running podcasts in the true crime space. And I'd written a book about a serial imposter, and he invited me on. And so, we hit it off. There's some great stories about his podcast, his secret bunker. I won't reveal those now, but we hit it off. And about a year later, I thought that maybe we could connect, and we did. And we wrote a book called A Taste for Murder. And it was really a great and still is a pretty good seller. And so we decided, well, hey, you know what? There's something to the difference of our styles that fits together well and makes for good storytelling and good journalism. So we decided to write a few more.
Yeah, and so far no one's beat us up over it. And people ask, how do we work together? No, when I see him afterwards, after we get a book done, we go and we talk about it. But when we write the book, I say, you want to take this chapter? Okay. You want to take this chapter? And then, I'm older and decrepit, and he's a lot healthier than I am. So when I fall apart, I just say, Frank, take it from here, fix up whatever, And I have some peculiarities in my style that I think kind of irritate him. Yeah. Which is okay with me because I'm used to that. So sometimes he revises my style so that it doesn't irritate him as much, which is okay. Because I figure if it bothers him, it's going to bother somebody else too. So
it's very, very few of those occurrences actually happen. They're few and far between. Burl has a very great voice, and it always shines through, especially in a book like this one that we're talking about today, Where Murder Lies. And we wouldn't even have written this book if it wasn't for Burl and his connections. He's like I say, he does this podcast, but he's also really connected in his community. And Burl, maybe you can tell Jim and the Sherpa Nation exactly how this book came to be.
Well, when I first came to return to Los Angeles, actually, because I'd been there before, I came in pretty much as a mess. I had a surprise divorce pulled on me, and all my insurance taken away. And thing is, I sustained a massive front temporal lobe brain injury in infancy. I required medication. Suddenly, I didn't have it. That was rather upsetting. So by the time I left where I was, which was Las Vegas, and came to LA, I needed to check in someplace to get some help, which I did, and I got my medication. And the person who did the intake for me was a woman named Kelly Lee, not the porn star, but the same name. Maybe similar career paths eventually or later, I don't know. But anyway, we became friends. She did the intake there at Beit Yeshuva, and I became friends with her and her husband. And a few years down the road, she says, I got a story for you. There's this guy in prison for murder, and it just happened too fast. I have all the documentation. Will you take a look at it?
Mhm.
Well, I took a look at it and went, oh, geez, we got something here. we got something here really weird. And I called Frank and showed it to him. I said, you want to get in on this? He said, hell yeah. Well, we didn't realize it was, how many years did it take to get this book done, Frank?
6 years to report and write the book. And,
No, I've talked to other true crime writers. They'll say, oh, yeah, I spent 90 days, researching this. I go, you lucky son of a gun. We spent, we start in. And I mean, it is, if you've read the book or glanced through the book, one of the great challenges is things that don't seem to have any connection are connected.
Right.
You start off with a dead guy on the bed, fully clothed. No one broke into his apartment, but his bedroom door has been locked and then ripped apart the handle on his bedroom door. Practically, off the, someone battled to get in there. But he's laying in repose on the bed, fully clothed, like there's nothing wrong except he's dead. What does this have to do with the rest of the stories we're going to tell you in this book? They are connected, honest, trust us. So every so often we have to say to the reader, okay, like we're holding their hand. We're going to tell you a story and trust us. This has to do with the murder. But you got to, I know it doesn't sound like it. We had to keep coming up with ways of assuring people of that. And I'd come up with a way and Frank would come up with a way. Because it happens so often. By the time you get to the end of the book, it all very sadly fits together. Mm-hmm. Things that you didn't think had any connection are all connected. It's all one big thing. But you can't see that at first. And that's why it took so long to do this book. It just kept spiraling into these things going, whoa, where is this taking us? What is this? Dad's ex-school teacher in West Hollywood found strangled to death in his bedroom have to do with this guy who's with a committee to re-elect Nixon and the Ku Klux Klan of the South. And you go, but it does. It all fits together.
And I understand that you guys were offered money not to write the book.
Well, we weren't offered money. We might have taken it. Frank, you explain that one.
We weren't offered money, and but we were asked not to write it. We talked to attorneys for some of the central figures involved and asked to get their input and their comment. And rather than go that route, they said, "Hey, you know what? We'd rather you didn't write this." In fact, in one instance, we were told, don't write it. So,
well, that's what we say.
That's never stopped me before.
No.
No.
In the true crime world, as your Frank will agree, you're on the right track when you get death threats.
I haven't gotten a death threat, but but yeah.
But if you do, you really know you're on the right track.
Well, yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't think that you guys would have had that much trouble, because in the appendix of the book, I think about 90% of the people that you listed were all shot in the head or something like that.
Oh my God. Yeah. They didn't get any warning though. They just, it just took them by surprise. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of those happened, on the East Coast. And, and the reason that we put it in there is because all those homicides are in a way tied to the main homicide of this book. Mm-hmm. And that's the killing of Alexei or Alex or Sasha Markeitzer.
Yeah, a lot of them have a lot of different names. We had to kind of be careful and make sure that we know who's being murdered.
Who. Yeah. But they're all swell people. But the main kid here that kind of winds up in Hollywood, lost and walking the street because he kind of gets kicked out of where he was. Troubled kid. Mm-hmm. Gets a girl pregnant. There were a couple. And there were 3 people in this murdered man's apartment the night he died. This couple of homeless teens and a low-level Russian mobster. And why were they there? Why is this guy dead? And what was the point? I mean, why is this guy dead? What's the benefit? Why would someone kill this guy?
Right.
He wasn't robbed. You know, what? And the reason is couldn't even be mentioned at the trial.
Because AKF seems to be this central character that a lot of controversy seems to be flying around. I mean, he seems to be represented a lot of different ways in the book.
Oh, Mark, you mean?
Yeah.
The Russian mobster guy.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. When this fellow was murdered, this Alex Buckstead or whatever is pronounced his last name, there were actually 3 people who were going to be arrested. The last 3 people to see him alive. The one young pregnant woman, her boyfriend, and then Mark Itiev. And I didn't know, I didn't hurt him, I didn't kill him. The teenage boy is just crying and crying and crying. The girl who was going didn't have anything really much to do with any of it. They told her boyfriend, if you don't confess, we're going to charge her. So chivalry's not dead, it's deadly. To protect his pregnant girlfriend, they say, you're going to charge her. So he says, oh, I did it to protect her. He winds up doing 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tragic story. And trying to get a straight answer of anybody back then, this story, this murder, got absolutely no publicity. Not a paragraph in the paper, not a word on radio or TV. And yet, it happened at night. By morning, everyone's arrested, everyone charged, and they're heading towards the trial. It all happened that fast.
Why was there an intentional media block on it, do you think?
I don't think it was an intentional media block. I just think that, superficially, it looks like the same kind of murder that happens in LA sort of every day. And when we get to trial in this case, and all these secrets can come out in the public, there's, almost collusion between the prosecution and Jimmy's defense attorney to quash any information about co-defendant Mark Itiev, including the fact that Mark was a DEA informant, an informant for the FBI, and an informant for the Pasadena, California Police Department. None of that came out. And if it had, the outcome could have been a little bit different. In fact, Jimmy might have argued that he was entrapped into being in the room where a murder was committed. And that avenue of defense was completely, taken away from him.
They didn't tell him why, though. He wanted it.
They could bring it up in court.
No, they couldn't.
They could not. No, It was completely kept away from the jury. Yeah. So he couldn't, he had no way to defend himself using the main reason that he was in the room. And that is the fact that he was entrapped.
Right.
And so, we do a great deal of, kind of explaining the circumstances that brought him there. And it's really sort of a butterfly effect of things that are so much bigger than this case that are happening, just, maybe say a dozen miles away that wouldn't seem connected in any way at all. It turns out that they are. They are. Yeah. There's this we detail a great plan to steal gold from a person or a company that provides gold to the federal government for the space shuttle. We learn of a plan to bring up MDMA from Mexico. We learn how a couple of guys, again on the periphery of this, are figuring out that it's better to make Viagra than to just steal it.
There's a joke in there somewhere, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. It's a hard story to tell.
Yeah. Yes, Burl. That's what she said.
Yeah. Get up, Bob.
and all these things, including a plot to scare a reporter for the LA Times who was writing about actor Steven Seagal, are all intimately connected to this low down 2-bit murder in an apartment of a drunken school teacher who was trying to get laid.
Yeah, at first glance, you wouldn't say, oh, this must be connected to that giant gold scam, or this must be connected to the MDA smuggling, or this must be connected to the plot to defraud the U.S. government of several $billion. No, but it is.
Yeah.
But it is. And that's one reason it took so long to get this book researched and published. Plus, we had to wait to publish the book until the kid that was sent to prison 20 years to life got paroled. Because in order to get paroled, you have to go before the parole board and take full responsibility for the horrible murder you committed and how bad you feel about it. Well, he feels bad about it, and he really feels really bad about participating.
And he
in the
feels
whole
responsible
situation.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as far as the situations as portrayed in the trial, it's all nonsense, complete fabrication. And we couldn't.
What's
Go
really
ahead.
great is that the parole board calls it out. The
Yeah.
parole board looks at the entirety of the case and says, hey, these guys were Russian mobsters. and what happened there? And Jimmy in the parole board, he's at a loss. We don't know. I don't know what happened. And the parole board just keeps hammering it. They're like, yeah, but this guy, he was involved in all these scams, and he was admittedly an informant and admittedly using you to further his own end. And it's really wild. It's like this confirmation of everything that we had, researched and written was right there in the parole board hearing. And good for Jimmy. I mean, whatever happened. He was there when it did. He did his time. Stand-up guy. Walked out, and 2 years ago this May he will have been on parole for that long, and he'll be off parole in May. I just talked to him the other day, and he's a hardworking guy. He went from being a homeless guy to a guy that helps people in homeless shelter in San Francisco. And it's that is a very, very difficult thing to do, to witness deaths and addiction and tragedy on a daily basis. And somehow he keeps this cheery spirit about him. And he is a hopeful guy. He's hopeful that, the more his story is told, that, maybe somehow he'll be exonerated. Maybe somehow, his fortunes will change, at least when it comes to the adjudication of this particular case.
We can keep our fingers crossed with that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a heck of a story.
Yeah, you're putting it mildly,
Yeah. And I said that one of the challenges we faced was getting people to cooperate, which some people did, some people wouldn't. But is that thing of how to keep, was always they drag the reader kicking and screaming through all the pages. As an author, especially a true crime book, it's important to keep them reading. You want them to go from chapter to chapter to chapter. And yet here we have stories that don't seem connected, that we have to get them to say, trust us. We're going to tell you a story that doesn't seem, but believe me, fortunately, apparently they're trusting us. The people who have got the book are going, wow, what a story. It is keeping them, to making it to the end. But it doesn't really have a happy ending in terms of giving you a feeling of trust of the court system,
right?
Where you can see, this is the Underground Railroad, this is the Above Ground Railroad, where this kid goes up to prison when, if you look at it objectively, there was no way he got a fair trial because the most important piece of information was withheld.
Sure. And I think really part of the, part of the many straws that stirred this drink was, I tell you, his Uncle Meyer, right? Because wasn't he tied up with a lot of the big crimes?
Yeah.
And he was, I guess, trying to get him out of jail, right? Was that what the deal was?
Well, your Bark idea was trying to get his uncle, Meyer, out of federal prison.
Right.
And the way Frank sometimes says, it's like going to a Chinese restaurant and order one from column A, one from column B. He's an informant. He's like, what do I have to do to get my uncle out of prison? Well, solve a murder. Easiest way to solve a murder, arrange one.
Right.
Which allegedly is what he does.
Yeah, which ultimately sets the book in motion, really. I mean, then all the little lids get opened up, and was it Pandora's box?
It is. Crime. It's a Pandora's box of insane stuff. I mean, and some of it goes right across the country to Brighton Beach, where there was a huge influx of people from the former Soviet Union in the late 80s and early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that kind of wash of the diaspora back to the West in a neighborhood that was once the main neighborhood for the LA mob of Mickey Cohen and, Louis Dragna and some of the, Jimmy the Weasel, right? So
what a great name to have. Hi, I'm Jimmy the Weasel.
There don't have too many coffee mugs that say that on there. But
don't mind me. I'm Jimmy the Weasel. Okay.
Yeah. But those guys were all in this neighborhood, decades before the Russian mobsters showed up. And so it's kind of a fascinating little tie to the past in and among this stuff, too.
All right. So before we wrap it up, we want to let the listeners know, where can they find out more about you guys?
Sure. So what? Our private lives, our sexual proclivities.
You can look at social media.
Fashion choices. As far as our books go, we're so popular and famous, you can buy all of our books at your favorite bookstores. Online at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Of course, this is our most recent one, Where Murder Lies. Mm-hmm. And we'd really like, it's available in hardback, paperback, electronic, for Kindle or whatever, and also an audio book. It's not in Braille yet, but I guess that could be forthcoming. But every other formats you could get it in. And we'd really appreciate it if you'd buy our other books too. There's nothing to stop you from buying books by Frank or books by me or the other ones we've done together. Sure. You can have a whole collection, And I'll tell you a secret. Personally, this is just me talking. Even if they're totally illiterate, owning these books speaks volumes of your erudition and good taste.
It's hard to top.
Okay, Frank, your turn.
but yeah, okay, second that. While you're at it, follow us on social media. We're both on X, formerly Twitter, which is a little bit crazier now than it was in the past.
I keep expecting Hitler to come back with a grave and be on there.
You just have to ignore that stuff, Burl. You can You can also
what are they shooting at you?
Yeah, they're shooting at me now. You can also find us in various other places. I have a Substack, and you're welcome to come on my Substack and subscribe. It's free. It's Area 51 True Crime at Substack. There's even some pretty decent true crime reporting stuff there. We're hoping we can get out there your way on a book tour later this year.
That was good.
That'll be scary. That'll be fun.
Okay, guys. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot, Jim. I love your demeanor, and the show's great.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing it.
Listen and subscribe on podcast apps everywhere. And we're on YouTube at Sherpalution. Sorry, no video. You're welcome.
Thanks so much to Burl and Frank for swinging by the Sherpa Chalet. And of course, if you want to get their book, we will provide the link to you right in the show notes, but it's wherever you can find books as well. If you like true crime and you also like conversations with creators and even hear about podcasts and interviews with podcasters, then guess what? You're at the right place. We are here every Wednesday for you with new episodes and all sorts of interviews and wacky, fun things going on. And on Saturdays, we do Sherpa Selects, where you get to hear the classic episodes, kind of like, I don't know, classic Coke or classic disco, classic rock, I don't know. Those are the earliest shows, and you can hear those on Saturday if you want to check out some more. I hope you do. Follow this show on podcast apps or our YouTube Sherpalution page or on Open.video. Social media, we are on Instagram, Threads, YouTube, and TikTok at Sherpalution1. Use that number 1, and that's where you can see our TikTok videos, because we do our little goofy promo things. I appreciate you all spending a little time listening to this interview and hope that you come back. And until then, I say to you, Viva la Sherpalution!
Thanks for listening to True Crime Screening Room. Subscribe to the show on podcast apps or the Sherpalution YouTube page. Until then, stay away from evil. And more important, Viva la Sherpalution.